I recently got to sit down with James Greenfield from Koto, one of my favorite branding studios in the world. 140 people, 5 studios, and clients like Airbnb, Coca-Cola, and Call of Duty. Crazy. And he shared stuff that really made me think, and not because it was complicated, but because it was actually pretty simple, and it's just the basic things that I've just been overlooking running my own branding studio. So today, I'm going to share my 3 biggest takeaways from that conversation with James in the hope that it helps people like you and me, designers running 1 to 3 person studios. So the first thing James talks about is what he calls tenets, and I'll let him explain this because he can do it better than I ever could.
For me, I focused on things called tenets. Now, a tenet, and this is the dictionary definition, is an opinion, principle, doctrine, dogma, etc., especially one held as true by the members of a profession, group, or a movement. We set the tenets of Koto early on because what we wanted to do was we wanted to make sure that when clients were engaging us, they understood what they were working with, who the people were going to be, how they were going to operate.
So at Koto, they've got 3: optimism, co-creation, and craft. And here's the bit that got me. They don't just keep these words in their head for no one to see. They talk about it everywhere, in proposals, on phone calls, in their marketing collateral, and everything.
That's the 4th page on the first document we'll talk them through. And so we talk about it as like working engagement. We reaffirm them in creative decks when we present. And so like, we'll remind you, this is how we work. This is what it looks like. We pick it up in phone calls and in-person and Zoom calls and talk about like, this is how the optimism manifests itself. This is how we think craft's coming to life. And so therefore it's that kind of repeated interaction. There's a thing in psychology called the mirror effect, which talks about the fact that you have to be introduced to something 6 or 7 times for it to stick. And so we're always aiming for that kind of 6 or 7 different ways in.
6 or 7 times. That's crazy. By the time the client actually starts working with Koto, they've heard how they work like 4 times already. And that's not coincidence. That's a strategic system. And then he just dropped this line on the whole room that I just keep coming back to.
What is your model? Can you explain it to someone? Can you write it down? Can you put it on 3 post-it notes? Do you have a feeling of who you are and how you work?
3 post-it notes. That's the test. And here's the thing, this is actually more important for us as 1 to 3 person branding studios than it is for a 140 person business, because the brand is us. And if you can't explain your process and how you work, clients just don't buy. So my challenge to you is this, and I've done this myself: sit down with a blank piece of paper and map out your process from start to finish. Now, the second thing that James mentioned is actually a Jeff Bezos idea, but the way that he's applied it to a branding studio is bloody brilliant.
There's a thing that Jeff Bezos says, which is most decisions are 2-way doors. If you make the wrong decision, it's a 2-way door. You pick it, you walk out, you spend a little time there, turns out to be wrong, you can come back in and pick another door. I think a lot of us think about doors as 1-way doors, which is if I make a decision about my business, my practice, a design or whatever, I'm going to go through that and I'm never going to be able to return back. And so therefore what I think that does is it makes us artificially safe. It keeps us in a position.
Artificially safe. That phrase really stuck with me. That's genuinely actually what happens. We overthink everything. We spend months deciding on what niche to serve. We agonize over changing our pricing. And then someone on the call, one of our members, asked James a question, asked him for an example, and he dropped this absolute banger.
On January the 5th every year, I delete my calendar and I start again. Also, I get rid of all of my standing meetings. I get rid of everything. And I'm like, I'm just going to design this from the fresh because I know that the stuff that I don't need anymore will disappear. And then I can start like, that's a 2-way door for me, which is some stuff I'll have to reverse back on, but also I'm going to find some new stuff moving forward.
Every year, wipes the whole slate clean, and whatever actually matters comes back onto the calendar, and whatever's gone was just habit and is gone forever. And that's a 2-way door. You can change your mind and come back out that door if you want to. You don't have to stay through that door that you've walked through. And then James said something about his own past that I think every designer watching this will resonate with.
You know, I found when I, in the past, was a sole practitioner, I would overthink things and would be constantly, and I had an external hard drive that had 4 websites I never launched on it. To me, in a way, I was like, that is destructive behavior.
4 websites, never launched, on an external hard drive. If that doesn't describe half of us, well, I don't know what does. So just try it. Walk through the door, like make a decision and walk through that door. And if you don't like it, just turn around, walk back out. The cost of standing still is almost always worse than the cost of getting it slightly wrong. Takeaway number 3, today versus tomorrow. Right, my third and final takeaway, and this is probably the most important one, and I think this is something that we all get wrong. James talked about this pattern that almost every designer I know goes through. You're flat out on a project, then it ends, and then you panic. You scramble for new work, then you get it, and then you're flat out again. Feast or famine, over and over and over. And he nailed it.
I think what happens is we create these kind of moments where we're insanely busy and then it suddenly drops off a cliff. And most designers I know will then be going, "Oh, I'm going to have some time off, or I don't know what I'm going to do, or I need more work, or I need whatever." And so we end up in this real peaks and troughs, feast and famine. And I think it can be quite a stressful place to work because we're either working insanely hard, or we're quiet and we're worried, or we're working insanely hard. And because we haven't thought about what we're doing next, we're really getting ourselves into this kind of like stress mode all the time. And what happens in a stress environment is you just don't do your best work.
You just don't do your best work, and that's the truth of it. And here's what he did about it from day one, when it was literally just two of them. Borrowed chairs, internet so bad, one of them had to run home to do a Google image search.
Even when there was two of us, on a Monday, our whole week was always planned out. And the way we did it, we had this really simple Google sheet, which was, this is what we're doing in the morning, this is what we're doing in the afternoon. And then on a Friday, we would mark ourselves to see how well we'd done and whether we'd achieved the things that we do. So for me, Tuesday and Thursday mornings were always new business. However busy I was, I would always be ringing people, trying to have a coffee with someone, sweating the network, doing whatever I did. What I'd done is I'd taken when I was the executive creative director of an 80-person company, and I put that model on top of a 2-person company.
So he took the structure of a big agency and just nailed it down into a little 2-person studio. 2 people, a Google sheet, Tuesday and Thursday mornings, new business, no matter what. And that discipline is why Koto never goes hungry. They're never in that feast or famine cycle because they put that new business work in and it pays the dividends. And that's not because they got lucky, it's because they planned tomorrow, today. And then he said something that sounds so simple, it's almost not worth saying, but here it is.
If you can get a handle on it, you'll be happier. And if you're happier, you'll do better. And if you do better, you'll be happier. And the whole thing is all interconnected.
Happy, more work, better clients, more money, but it all starts with a plan. So those are my 3 takeaways. Write your model down, treat decisions like two-way doors, and plan your week like a big studio, even if it's just you on your own. And before we wrap this up, it was quite interesting. At the end of the session, I said to James, like, you've helped us so much, like in this community, like what can we do to repay the favor? And what he said was pretty cool.
Don't do anything for me. I don't need anything. Go and find a place where you're really comfortable. Sit down with a blank sheet of paper, write your model out.
Write out your model. That's it. I've been a massive fan of Koto for years. I've completely copied some of their layouts and everything. I can't believe they haven't sent me a cease and desist, to be honest. But listening to James talk about running the business, not just the design side of things, but actually running a business, that was real gold. As designers, we get so focused on the work and the craft and the beauty of doing what we do. But the way you run the thing, that's the thing that actually determines whether you're going to enjoy it or not, whether it's going to be a profitable business and whether it's going to last. And this is exactly the stuff we work on inside Brand Mastery Accelerator. If you're a brand designer and you want help with running your business, check out the link below in the description. I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you on the next one.